I'll try not to scream. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, because I tend to scream. I'm a screamer. How's everybody doing?
Great.
That's it? Or, yeah, all right. Hello, my name is this guy, Benjamin Niaulin, and I will be working with you today. It's an interesting session because it's lots of buzzwords. And it's probably the reason everybody's here, because we hear the same buzzwords. So before we get started, no problem. Before we get started, there's a few things we've got to get out of the way, right? The first things is who's this guy? And I don't like to spend 10 minutes on this, so we're not. What is two things that describe... Anybody from my session yesterday? So, that's awesome. Thank you for coming. So what are two things that you can describe me with? Geek, yeah.
Very.
I'm French, so sorry. And the second one? Lazy. Extremely lazy. So everything that I do is always to get the least amount of work for me possible. Right? That's why I went into IT, to automate stuff for others, not for me. So in this session, and this is how you can contact me, but nobody, I work at ShareGate, you can come see me afterwards if you want at the booth, but the idea is always, if I talk about myself right now, you don't care. Right? You want to know about the session, and maybe you'll want to talk afterwards. So the information to contact me is here. I'm also on the Yammer for the event as well, so you can talk to me afterwards if you like. So we won't spend time on this or that I am from the land of Kitty. Thank you for the sponsors, of course. You've seen this many, many times. I'm not going to start listing all of them. So let's really get started. How's everybody doing? Still good? Okay. So the first thing first, right? How do we make a successful team collaboration? And to give you an idea, this session, the session is really about first some basics of a SharePoint team site or what you have in SharePoint, but really, really basic to make sure, because I know a lot of people are starting with SharePoint. But then I'm going to talk to you about an experience that I had. Finished working with a large engineering firm, and we've just rolled out SharePoint for 3,000 people. And basically, going to SharePoint was a little mandatory because by law they had to get away from file share because of something that happened for security reasons, basically. So I'll explain all of that to you. I'll explain what we did, what miserably failed, because there are things that have failed miserably. And I won't just say, oh, this is shiny, this is nice, this is cute. There's definitely some things that really did not work out at all. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about what we've done in the team side. And it's not so much going to be about features, but also about how we rolled it out and some of the things that we've done to the team side, the changes that we've done to make it successful. So this is kind of the session here today. So first, before we can even start, what's SharePoint? And unfortunately, I don't know. And that's the feeling that we get. This isn't really what he said. That wasn't the real question. It's just a picture, guys. He knows what SharePoint is, I hope. But the problem is often we don't really know what SharePoint is. So that's where I'm going to go with this as well. Right? SharePoint is a platform. We've said this many, many times. You've heard it probably before. It's not a tool. If you install Word, you have Word. Everybody has Word. It creates documents. Awesome. You can go and look up the features. It's all the same. It's all exactly the same. However, if we're talking about SharePoint, it's more a platform. You build what you want. Okay? Some of you may build a public-facing website, collaboration sites, team sites, replace file shares, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and other similar stuff like that. It's really a platform. So the way that I'm going to do it isn't necessarily the way that you guys will do it or that another one will do it. So it's very, very important to understand the core of the platform and what it's for, what you can do with it. So what can you do with SharePoint? Well, you can do an intranet. I think this is the most popular one. This is usually one of the reasons or one of the ways that SharePoint enters inside of an organization is we want to replace the intranet. It's old, it doesn't work, we can't find information, can't find anything. So basically we're going to try to do an intranet. Obviously not the opposite, but something that goes hand in hand with intranet, extranet. Everybody familiar with those terms? Intranet is not the internet, it's intra. It's an intranet website, but for our company, for our employees. And extranet is outside with our partners, customers. I want to give them a portal, but they can securely access. And that's the benefit of SharePoint, right? Because there's tons of other platforms that I can be using. SharePoint is not awesome in everything, but it allows me to use one platform and then do intranet, then do the same things that I learned to use an extranet, and so on and so on. So of course, intranet website, collaboration, which is what we're going to talk about today, process sites. This is really a name that I gave. You might not find this on Google or Bing, whatever you use. Process sites is I have a business process, and I'm going to make a site that represents that process to automate it with workflows, with custom development. It's really to map a business process that I have into an application. And obviously applications, a CRM, customer relations management. I can do that with SharePoint. Would I ever do that? No, because there's CRM and Salesforce, and I'm not going to rebuild something. But I could, because SharePoint is a platform. Okay. Everybody still okay? It's important. This is a public-facing website that we've actually built. It's in English and French, but it's an example of an internet-facing website. But of course, if I show you this internet-facing website, the other one that I have to show you, which is classic with every single demo of SharePoint, anybody has an idea? Ferrari.com. Everybody's always, oh, Ferrari.com. But there's tons of sites out there that are made with SharePoint that we just don't know. I usually give examples I always joke about calling Canada Canada, and then I start calling Canada Canadian all the time. So, in Canada, there's a lot of public-facing websites built with SharePoint, just because we already have it, right? The site that I just mentioned here that we've built, we didn't just say, oh, we're going to use SharePoint 2013 to build a site. We already had it for intranet, people were using it for collaboration, so we just reused the expertise that we had internally to build something, because everybody already knows how to use it and knows what it is. And we already paid for the license of the software, which is why it's very, very popular as well. You have Kraft Foods as well, so it could be used as an intranet or an internet-facing website, Spot inside their intranet. So there's tons of ways of rebranding and reusing SharePoint for sure. This is our problem, right? The quote, the famous, I get that quote. We got SharePoint, we want to do collaboration. What does that mean? Right? And the other one, the famous one, anybody consultants here? Well, it doesn't even have to be consultants. It could be you in the business. Right? You go see whoever's in charge, whoever's going to approve or decide what we're going to do, and you tell them, well, what are we going to do with SharePoint? And if they're not saying we're going to collaborate, what are they saying? Oh, well, tell me what SharePoint can do, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do. No. That doesn't work. It never works. Because if you have no need for it, we're not going to just start doing stuff. The biggest problem with SharePoint, and while, you know what? Even I've failed miserably with projects. And, you know, I work with SharePoint all the time, but it does happen. We tend to go, and there's no real need specified, even for collaboration, which is what you should start with. What does that even mean? Because does it have to be SharePoint? Can we do Yammer then to collaborate? Can we use another program? Like, is it really SharePoint team sites? So you got to define that, and this is one of the problems. Is before even the technology, is really understanding what are we going to use it for, and then we can continue. So one of the big failures that I've had is it's never been said, and because SharePoint is such a platform that allows you to create anything that you want, really, and you always get stuck adding more and never really finishing what you were supposed to, which was the collaboration team site, right? A site to remove the file share, put the documents in there, and make it easier to work than it was before. Problem often is we start with that, we put the documents, we dump them, and then we get caught up with bells and whistles. Oh yeah, let's do search. And I'm a big fan of search, you know it. I've done a session yesterday, but we lose track of what we were supposed to do with the team site to make working with the documents better than with the file share. So this is one of the big problems. Yeah, we got SharePoint for collaboration. Now you need to know what you're going to do with it. I was supposed to talk on this slide. Exasperated. So, first we're going to start with a SharePoint recap. Just the basics to make sure, because even though when people tell me they've been using SharePoint for a year, and then I tell them about the 5,000 view threshold limit, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I want to talk to you about the basics, and then we'll apply it to what we did for our customer and see basically what. Who's new with SharePoint? Okay, some, which is awesome. Don't worry, you don't know these other people, they won't judge you. What's important is to understand the basics, and even if you think you know the basics, just humor me for a second. What's a SharePoint site? And the way that I like to see a site is kind of like a box that you give to someone, right? Because when you give that box, they can do whatever they want inside of that box. But if you're going to want to give them another box and they want to work in both boxes at the same time, it becomes difficult because they don't have the same tools within it. So it's the same concept with a SharePoint site. When you start giving sites to people, the more sites you create, basically the more silos you create. It's not as easy to start creating things in one box and having them available in another box. So honestly, SharePoint is the easiest thing at the core, right? You have the box, which is a site, and the only two things that exist in a site is either lists or libraries. Okay? So of course, quickly, if you're familiar with tables in Word or in Excel, I have a table, it's a list. It's the same thing, it's just web-based. And the advantages is what? I'm not going to replace Excel. It just, sometimes I just have data sheets in Excel. Well, I'm going to put them in SharePoint because now, individually, I can have versioning, I can have content approval, I can control the columns, which in Geek World, what do we call columns? Metadata. This just means extra information. That's all it means. Right? Metadata is not with SharePoint, metadata is a word, metadata, more data. Right? So it was there with pictures, it was there with lots and lots of different files. We've just given it a lot of power in SharePoint. So here we have a list, and then what's a document library? Well, it's a list, it's another table, except it's the actual document being stored in each row. Right? So the idea is I have rows, and then I have columns. The more column I have, the more additional information I have for these items. Right? Everybody okay with this so far, obviously? Well, I say obviously, I shouldn't. Everybody okay with this so far? Right? Core of SharePoint. And then we get to the site templates. And I'm not saying we're going to use or we should use the out-of-the-box ones. I'm saying it's important to understand that when you choose one of the site templates, even though they're templates to get you started, it actually makes a huge difference which one you choose. There are impacts to SharePoint. Things that you can do, things that you can't do with one template or another. It's not just a bunch of things that have been prepackaged, not all the time at least. For example, if I choose the blank site, which technically doesn't exist anymore in 2013, although technically it does, but you can't create it anymore, right? There's certain features that aren't activated. So there's certain things that you can't do if what you created was a blank site, right? And these site templates are basically saying, let's create a box where lists and libraries have already been created inside of it to do something. A team site is supposed to be for a collaboration, but it comes with lots of junk that we don't need. And the blog site is obviously for blogs. The record center to manage records. The publishing site for publishing intranets, for example, and pages. So obviously it matters which template you choose. The most popular one is, of course, the team site. And I chose to use 2010 a lot for this session because people are usually a lot still on 2010, though I'll cover what's changed or what's different in 2013 as well. Everybody still okay? Okay. I'll check. Check. And then you have the site collection. What's the site collection? Is a bunch of sites that are linked or grouped together under the same hierarchy by one top site that we usually call the root site or the superior site. It is the boss. This site can only be created through the central administration, which is the server piece if you want, And then after that, from here, I can create sites and subsites and subsites. And that we call simply a collection of sites, so a site collection. There's lots of boxes inside this box. Like, what are they called? Russian dolls? Is that what it's called? I think so. What's important about it, very, very important, because I paid the price. It's so silly, right? Site collection. Ben, can you get to the real stuff with this session, please? But this actually hurt me in a very, very simple scenario. This was another company, maybe you guys maybe know it, Bombardier, very popular for us, Canada, obviously, but basically the planes. But Bombardier also makes trains, and they're very popular in Germany. So I went to Berlin for a couple of weeks, and we were working with Bombardier, and one of the needs was very, very basic. I mean, they were doing collaboration sites as well. And then we said, well, you know what? What we would really need is a site per basic. They wanted to work with external customers or partners, if you like, right? People that we're going to work with externally. They wanted them to come work on the documents instead of doing FTPs, because FTP is so boring. There's nothing. You can't do branding. There's no versioning. It's just, and sometimes it doesn't work. Well, SharePoint. Well, so basically, with this problem, right? Because we didn't really realize what we were doing. This was a couple of years ago. We created the sites all in the site collection because SharePoint's awesome, right? If you don't have access to something, what happens? You don't see it. Everything's security trimmed. So in the navigation, if I don't have access to the library, I don't see the library. That's the whole point. Or documents, I don't have access, I don't see them. So we thought, awesome. We'll just do one site collection, and for each partner that we have, for example, because there wasn't that many, I think there was maybe like 30. So we thought, we'll put it all in the same site collection. Like that, we can create ourselves a nice dashboard. Because before 2013 search in 2010, it wasn't so easy without code to get, for example, all of the sites and all of the site collections and get a dashboard of what was going on, all the tasks, all the documents. So what we decided is we put it all in the same site collection. What happened? Everything worked great. Set the permissions up. People couldn't access. Customer A couldn't see what customer B was doing. It was different sites. Couldn't even see the site. Where do you think I paid the price for? Any ideas? Okay. Here. Because a site collection shares things. Because you're in the same big hierarchy of things. First, you can share the same database, though it's optional. Because by default, databases are shared by web applications, but technically we recommend database for site collection, depending on the scenario. So I put a star. We share the same style library, which is usually a folder, if you like, or a library where we store pictures and things that we're going to use for branding and design stuff, content query stuff, but that wasn't my problem. My problem was as basic as SharePoint groups. They're shared by the site collection. It didn't mean that they could see and do what was going on in the groups. They could simply see the group. That means that when they were in their task list, in their site, and they had to specify groups or they were looking for groups to work with, all of a sudden, they see groups that belong to another customer, which happens to be kind of a competitor, and we didn't necessarily want them to know we were also dealing with the other. Right? It was this very corporate world, and so this is something that we paid the price for. So understanding the architecture of SharePoint before you even do the team sites and all of that is extremely important. So understand this, the boxes, what's inside the boxes, and of course what is shared when you do one site collection. And then this will impact when I get to my sort of case study. Column types, I'm not going to read stuff. We're not going to read stuff. But it's important when you're choosing the type of columns that you're creating, obviously, that you know what you're going to do in the future with them. I know it's tough, but as much as you can, because you can't change that later. Very difficult to do it. And if, for example, you create a column and you tell people, just tell me the year or just tell me the date. If it's a single line of text, for SharePoint, it's just blah. It's just ones and zeros that make letters. It doesn't mean anything to it. If you say date and time, for SharePoint, it's a date and time. which allows you to do the calendar view, a custom calendar view, which also allows you to do workflows, right? I have a lot of contracts that I got to renew every year, personally. I have my own little my site, and I have a little workflow that simply says, when the renewal date is equal to today plus 30, so in 30 days, send me an email, and it gives me a reminder. 30 days before, set it up 2 seconds. But if I didn't have a date and time column, so choosing the right type of column is extremely important, because it'll make or break later on when you're creating views or workflows, especially workflows. Centralize and reuse. Said it yesterday for those that were, the worst thing you can do is always click on create column. The create column in the ribbon, worst one. Because where does it create the column? In that library. It's not reusable, and we were doing sites for it's an aluminum company. They make aluminum foil basically in Quebec. And what happened is they called me. Like, I do believe it was a Friday because I remember not being happy about it. And hey, I'm a human. So I think so. Anyway, let's get back to it. So I get the call, and they're like, "Dan, you told us SharePoint. This is crap." I was getting called names and all kinds of stuff. And what was happening is they had something like 200 document libraries in the same site, and then they had multiple sites that also had similar document libraries, and each of those document libraries had a choice column. And the choice column in all these libraries was the same choices. It made sense when they started SharePoint, and then later on what happened is they needed to add a new choice. They acquired, I think it was they acquired a new company or a new product, they needed to add a choice. But because they clicked on create column, they had to go into the 200 document libraries and click on edit column, add the choice manually, sometimes make a spelling mistake because it's manual work. Right? For the power user, the person doing the job, extremely painful. So create column is actually not such a good idea. It's the easiest one, the quickest one, but it's not reusable. And also, for those of you, again, in the search, it doesn't automatically get created as a managed property, which means that this column will not be available to be filtered by the search center or search web parts. So you won't be able to say, give me all the documents where customer equals customer A. Not going to happen because you clicked on create column. Obviously, you can do things manually afterwards to make it available, but automatically it's not going to happen. So we pay the price. Well, I wasn't there when they did that, but I told them that's what happened. However, if they created a site column instead, remember my box is a SharePoint site. So if I create a column that belongs to the box instead of to a specific list or library, then it becomes reusable, not only in that box, but to all the boxes inside of that box. So in the site, within the site, basically the entire site collection. For example, the lookup column. You guys familiar with the lookup column? Right? It's a choice that comes from a list that already exists. People often complain, well, I have my list of, say, customers, then I have lots of sites, and I want to look up that list, which is not in the same box, which is not in the same list. So unfortunately, they thought that they couldn't do it, so they just got pissed. But what you can do is create a lookup site column. Because since the column belongs to the site, it's also available to every sub-site automatically. So if I create a lookup site column at the root of my site collection, here, all of these sites over here will all have that column that looks up for the list here, and I just centralized it. So it saves a world of pain, and on top of that, it eases my search administration later on. Because you know that little refinement panel on the side that lets me filter the search results? If it's not a site column, it won't show up. You'll have to manually create what we call managed properties, which I won't go into again. Everybody still okay? All right. And what did I hide under the chairs? Tomatoes. Feel free to throw them at me if it gets boring. Or walk out. This is a big one. Without necessarily choking anymore, this is actually really, really important. This is a problem I got with this project, actually, because we started off by giving too much power to the site owners without proper training, and I'll get to all of that. But when we give the team sites, we also gave a right that now I never give to anyone, and that's the right to create subsites. I never do that anymore. Look at those goosebumps. Worst thing, I left on vacation 2 weeks. I came back 732. What happened? It's like I needed a new page. Yeah, we'll create a new page. But they didn't understand the concept. They thought, well, you create a site, you have lists and libraries on the left, and then you have that home page. And then every time they wanted a new perspective on things or to do something else, click create site. Create site. Click create site. Wow. That was scary. Scarier was to try to fix this. But the pages, see them as views. So if for those of you that are familiar maybe with Access or databases, for those in IT, SharePoint is very similar to that. The site, you can see it as your database file, right? It's the database, which is going to contain what's inside a database? Lots of tables. We call them lists and libraries. And when we create all of these tables, you don't actually go to an end user and say, here, have access to my database. Have a good day. No, right? You have then a view, a way of seeing into the database. Example, when you access your emails, you don't go into the Exchange server, which is the database of your emails. You think they just appear nicely? No, there's a database server where your email goes, and then you use Outlook, which views what is inside your database properly. SharePoint is exactly the same thing. Think of pages as being the Outlook, and the lists and libraries as being the tables in your data. I don't actually make people go to my SharePoint team sites today. No one actually goes to them, except the people working in them heavily. People visiting the site go to pages which show different perspectives on those documents to access them in the ways that they want. So you'll actually see my quick launch is actually not the lists and libraries in my site. It's pages that offer different ways, perspectives on my content. Does that make sense? If I have documents that are categorized with tags, I'm not going to make them, go to the library and create views and start doing filters. No, this is Joe from sales. He's got other things to do. I'm not going to make him a SharePoint super. I'll do that. I'll create the pages and the views, and I'll have different perspectives, animations, maybe links, filters, and he'll go to them and use them. But it really depends the context. Like I said at the beginning, you have to know what SharePoint's for. It's a platform. You can't just give it and say, hey, you've never done anything like this before in your life, but now you're a SharePoint database admin kind of thing, right? Which you have no experience with databases before, you have no experience with performance and IT, but now you're supposed to manage a team site. No, unless you train them extremely well. So pages, you need to understand they're the perspective onto what we're creating in lists and libraries. So now you don't actually give people access to it. So there's difference between the wiki page. Wiki, you guys know a lot more because you're close to Hawaii, right? Wiki just means quick. And if you create brackets, you can start navigating your site and quickly link to things that are inside your site. Since 2010, 2013, especially 2013, everything's a wiki page now. We don't really work with the two other ones, except in some scenarios. The publishing is still very popular, which allows you to do page layouts and do designs a lot more. And then the web part page just kind of disappeared because you can only put web parts on those pages. So I use the wiki page pretty much all the time. These are my favorite web parts. The ones that basically I use all the time with my SharePoint sites. The content query in 2010 is obviously my ultimate favorite. Because if we're in boxes, it's hard to get the content from other boxes. In fact, it's pretty much impossible, except with the content query web part, but I still have to say it within my site collection. The content editor web part is my best friend, but for every single wrong reason that I should be using it for. You guys use the content editor web part? Anybody actually write content in it? That's the problem. That's the huge problem with it. Everybody writes custom code, HTML, CSS overrides, JavaScript animations, something you found on the internet. Paste, you've got a dashboard. Wait, what? The content editor web part is supposed to write content. But it is still my best friend, what can I say? In 2013, they added a new option in Pages, and it's, I think, a source editor. Basically, you can embed code, I think. And now directly in the ribbon, there's something to put those kind of codes. So in 2013, you actually don't use the content editor web part anymore, unless you don't know about that option. It's actually horrible, because, and maybe you haven't gotten there yet. Anybody doing a 2013 migration? Yeah, well, now you're gonna pay. Because it was during my, like I do a lot of migrations, obviously, but during the migration, when you give those people, those team sites back in 2013, all of a sudden you get all those phone calls, hey, it's not working. What do you mean it's not working? I did tons of tests, I didn't get any errors. It's like, yeah, but all these pages, I had animations, I had this, I had that, it's not working. I had easy tabs, not working anymore. Oh, okay, let's go check it out. Oh, you have a content editor with custom code in it that depended on the SharePoint 2010 design, and now it doesn't work anymore, but the problem is I had no idea. I can't know that people have content editor web parts with code in there. The only thing that I've managed to do is create a PowerShell script that basically scans all of my SharePoint to find pages with content editor web parts on them. But I gotta sit down and go check one by one and edit page and look at the code and see what if there's code in there. It's extremely annoying and long. So please don't. Honestly, yes. But I say that, but at the same time, I have no other solution, and I myself still use the content editor web part in 2010. The data view in SharePoint Designer, the filter web parts that add filters, and of course, the search results to get out. Because I'm a guy with no code. I don't code. You know, I came from a world where I was in IT with Active Directory, Exchange, SCCM, SCOM, System Center Operations. I was IT with software. And then SharePoint got popular and I got into that, which is all web, but I don't code. So I want to find as much as I can without code. So search results web part, content query, and now in 2013, content search and search results, save, basically, keep me a job. All right, we still okay? Still okay? All right. I want to see some smiles. So content types it is. I mean, what else can I say? If you don't know what a content type is, then it's okay because you're starting with SharePoint, right? Content types is the most, I'm going to start making up words, but it's the most ultimate important thing in SharePoint. Is that okay? Did we get that it's important? It is extremely important. Everything is built out of a content type everywhere. When you go into that create a site, create a list, and then you choose the announcement list, or you choose the contact list, or the document library, it's actually always the same empty shell, and then a content type is plugged in it. What is a content type? Is at the most basic level, it's me taking that side column, that side column, that side column, that side column, putting it together and calling it a name. Right? All of these columns together, they are what I call an invoice. Because every time I add an invoice in SharePoint, I got to put the invoice number, the customer name, the amount. So together, that's the content type invoice. And in SharePoint, there's a lot of extra settings that are just for content types. Right? Not always, but a lot, like changing the template of a document. You want more than one template in one library, then you have more than one content type. It is the only way. So content type is extremely important, but I would need at least 5 hours to go over all of them and explain them. So just make sure you cover what content types are. We okay? We got the basics? Okay. You see where we are? Because I tend to over-talk. Is that really already talked? So, here's what we did. What we did is we stopped calling it SharePoint. Is the most important thing in the project is you just don't call it SharePoint, because if it fails, which it probably will, you can start again with another name, and it's just fine. Okay? But if you ever go, I saw some people earlier, I'm a consultant. Did you ever go to those, yes, those customers, and you say, hey man, we should get SharePoint going. Oh, no. I had SharePoint 2003 and there's no way. Like, yeah, but we're like 14 years later almost, or, yeah, no, SharePoint's horrible. Yeah, but, and the word SharePoint is just associated with just bad because of their one bad experience, or their multiple bad experiences. Right? Same thing with 2007, same thing in 2010, people that switch companies. So usually I try to give it a project name. What we called it is a name that lots of companies use is eSpace. And that's our project. In another one, it was also eSpace. And then in another one, it was a bank, and I forgot what we called it. It was Desjardins. Yeah, we call it DNet, to be very, yeah, I don't come up with those things. So basically, make sure you stop calling it SharePoint. This, not Arnold, the things, is what basically saved, or something I learned to do, and now I do every single time I deliver team sites to everyone, is to do proper communication. I'll take a 2 seconds break just to explain to you the context now. The context is an engineering company under military context. You'll see who, Pratt & Whitney Canada again, and I mention them often because I just finished like 5 months with them. And basically, we're rolling out for 3,000 people. They had to stop using file shares, so it had to be able to replace file shares. It had to be secure, and it had lots of little things, but you know how many people in the IT team to SharePoint? Started with 2, and 2 project managers. That was awesome. But it is the reality of many, many, many SharePoint implementations. This is for 3,000 people. They have 4, 2 that cannot do any work in SharePoint. They do the project management of 2 people. Okay? So it was very, very important that, what did we get? That we get people on our side. Otherwise, it was us 4 against 3,000 unhappy people because we changed their life. So what we did is we made sure that we announced the new features that were coming, the dates and milestones where things were about to change, and we had access to the elevator TVs, the panels in the office, like real communication, not an email automatically deleted by people. Like these are things are changing. Cafeteria, we had help from communication. This is the one that will tell you always do. This is what gets people on my side, and I need them. What we do is we find people in the organization that I know are going to help us. The people that, when there's a change, they usually, yeah, let's try it out, let's see it. I like technology, although I'm not in IT, I'm going to try. They usually have a positive attitude. And if you don't know them, you try to ask the managers or whoever can put some time into it. We usually bring them into a secret launch meeting. Ooh, secret. Okay, must be good, that must be cool. And what we did is, and it depends on the budget of the company and what is allowed to do, obviously, but we did it at the bank and we did it at the engineering company, and it's kind of an event. There's music, we brought pizza in for one, we had little things to eat, we had some drinks. One, we like wine, can I say? And then the other one, we weren't allowed drinks. This is the bank, so we just put Coca-Cola. You guys have Coca-Cola? Just check it. Burger King. You call Burger King something? I heard the whole story. You don't have to tell me. So basically, we do these events, and all I do is I explain to them what we chose. We chose SharePoint, what's going to do, what it's going to do, what we're going to do with it, what are the features that are coming, and why we think it's going to make their lives better. And we want your participation. We want your feedback. You're going to be the leaders of this, but it's not going to make you do extra work. And they feel ultra special, which is exactly what I need. Because then when they go back to their team, and I'm going to roll out SharePoint team sites in collaboration, people are going to complain. That is going to happen. Because now, when you add a document, there's questions. I didn't have that before. So people are going to be pissed. But now, I got secret little players. They're like, no. Yeah, but you'll see because we're going to be able to do this, we're going to be able to do that, it's really cool, and I have access to the team over there, so I can give them feedback, and it usually really helps me put the thing a little bit back down, shut people back down a little bit. And it's has been very important to me, especially with large deployments. Okay, the reasons for the change. Real training. Real training. Not that little documentation, how-to, PDF, 72 pages, that obviously no one is going to read except those 3. It's not a pamphlet, it's going to be either in-class training. We couldn't do in-class training. There's 3,000 people. We're not doing in-class training. Self-service videos, that's what we did. I'll show you in a few seconds. You can do documentations. We did a wiki, and then every single site owner, everyone that I gave a team site to, the owner of a team site, we did something special where when you receive a team site, before you could use it, there's a pop-up on the screen. And it's called a Site Owner Agreement. And there's just basic things. It's not a legal document with, like, you know, those agreements we always click on agree. Not those kinds. A little pop-up, and I'll show it to you in a bit. I put a draft quickly, what you can do, what you're not allowed to do. Did you follow the training? If they did not follow the training, they're not allowed support. And obviously, we had governance. We had a governance committee. I told the committee, this is what we're going to do. I need you to back me up, because if the VP of that says, no, you're going to give it to them support, then the whole point of my thing doesn't work. So I need, obviously, the buy-in, but we always get it. If you didn't follow the training, I'm not going to spend money helping you because you didn't follow the training. So you're allowed to have the site, but you can't call us. So what we did, this is me without the beard, and it's going to be quick because it was in French. I have it here. You guys see a video somewhere? There it is. So this is basically what it looked like. There was lots of modules. I would start talking to explain to them what was going to happen. Maintenant qu'on a fait notre introduction à SharePoint, on est capable de... Nice language, hein? D'avoir accès à plusieurs sites SharePoint. Croissant. All right. And then I go inside. So we would split because just video training was very difficult. So what we did is really, I explained to them why it's important, what we're going to view, and then I guide them through the site, and then I finish off, and I close. And we had basically 40 videos like that, but they're never longer than 3 minutes. All of them. Short 3-minute videos. It took us 3 days to actually film them, all of them, in English and French. And now they do self-service training. And I can track who's viewed the video, because we have a little system, but you don't have to. You just follow it. And then what happens is that when they need help, they have a 3-minute video on how to do that problem that they have. Oh, I forgot how to tag documents. Video, how to tag documents. It saves me a lot of time. So we did that as well. Oh, I need to accelerate? Okay. This is the site user agreement. This is a Word document that I quickly, because I wasn't allowed to take it. But basically I tried to, the site that you just got, the management, all right? The site management policies on control, because we had different management policies, which means that a site owner, you can create and delete subsites, create and delete content types and site columns. It literally tells you what you're allowed to do. If you agreed to it and then you didn't do it, there were certain, not punishments, but we can't help you with that, right? It's very, very clear because it's a platform. People can do crazy things with it. If you didn't respect, this is what we mean by governance. Governance has such a big word to it, and it implies a 7,700 pages document. I never do a document for governance. Me, it's a wiki, lots of little pages, and then this usually has a link to that definition part of the wiki. Governance means to help, to govern, but to help them use the platform without going out of control. So I make them agree what they're about to do. Have you followed the training? This is going to be your site's retention. This is the storage that you have. And there you go. If you don't respect any of those guidelines, you're not supported because we're offering a service. Okay? Naming convention, quickly, because people call their files like this, but now we have metadata. That is the worst thing. Versioning doesn't work. And the linking of documents doesn't work in the future. So we remove all of that, put as metadata. So that was important. So this was our objective. Objective for 3,000 people again, team of 4. Simple and fast site provisioning. If somebody asked for a site, I needed to give it to them. One site template for everyone, for 80/20, no site actions. We did a custom site administration screen, very easily. Again, a page with links only to the things that they are allowed to manage. If I gave somebody site owner, like full control without being full control, I didn't want them to go to site settings and see all the other things that they were allowed to do right away. I needed to do only the things that I trained them for. So we did, I'll show it to you after. Simplified UI and security, and specialized sites in phase 2 after, for processes, for applications. Engineering needs to replace this process. Right now we're talking about collaboration sites, team sites. You had your documents there, I need to bring them somewhere where we can work together easy. And find the biggest problem, why are we trying all these things? Yammer, SharePoint, what is it called now? Delve, whatever. What's the problem? Why are we always doing all these things? I find, this is a personal opinion, that the problem is we can't find our information. And we're just looking for tools now. We're like, okay, let's try metadata instead of file shares. And we tried it out. And we still like, oh, well, now I got to put information, I don't like it. All right, let's try social. And we're into this because we're trying to find content that we have somewhere. And it's one of the biggest problems. This is what we created. A sort of a homepage. Mind you, we're all in SharePoint 2010 here. This is the homepage. And from there, people could go to their eSpace, do a quick search, advanced search, and most importantly, we did a find your sites. Because at some point, you want to see all of the sites that you belong to. If you had many team sites, where are they? Which one's what? Where do you go? How do you find it? So we have that. And we have also the process of requesting a new team site. So they get to this portal, and the team site request is basically an InfoPath form. Did I say the word InfoPath? Is that going to be okay with you guys? I actually love InfoPath. Once again, I'm not a developer. One of my best friends is InfoPath. Right? I know that there's no more InfoPath in 2023. Oh, it looks like we're 2014. We're good. Right? I know that I can do web-based forms and I can do all of that, but I can't code. I'll have to go see a developer. I know it's better. Okay. I know it's better. But right now I can do a form with InfoPath, and I understand that it's going to die, basically. And I know that it's not good for code inside of the form. Okay. But I just need people to answer questions. So I used it. Is that going to be okay with you guys? 3,000 people are using InfoPath form, and it works just great. They got 15 questions on there. People fill out why they need it. I couldn't show you exactly all of the questions, but basically in what region they work. You know, is it in Poland? Is it in Australia? Is it in North America? Wherever they are. Who's your bear? It's a thing for security, for military context. And basically they answer all of the questions. And then I have a very basic workflow that's going to direct the request to the right person, that's going to create them the team site, or go see them and say, based on what you just told me, you're not getting a site. You're getting a new page. Right? And we're going to do filter on your library because that's what you just told me. So I need to filter it out a little bit, but not too much because we're still just a little team. I think we're a team of 100 power users, about 100, 120 power users for the 3,000, and they help us with that. People that we've trained. If I clicked on look at my site, I actually go to my site. You guys comfortable with my site? It's now called OneDrive, which is not OneDrive, which is OneDrive for business, but not really OneDrive for business. My sites. When you go to my sites, there isn't this tab. We added it custom, right? So when you go to this custom tab called sites, we actually have, this is a data view web part, it's XSLT, and it pulls information, all of the sites that this user, you, belong to, in any of the groups, member, visitor. Who's the site administrator? and who owns the data in the site. Sometimes it's not the same person. And quickly, in 2013 it's native. So I wouldn't even have to create this. But this is extremely important. The team site itself. First, we did one team site template, which wasn't the team site template. We created our own, obviously, that is ready for anyone to use. There's many, many functionalities, but it's still very simple. It's all based, I said the same thing like 3 times. Okay, one collection per site. Every time somebody asks for a team site, we give them a site collection, because of future possible growth on it. For me to be able to easily put it in another database if it grows too much, right? I needed the flexibility. And what I've learned with time, if you're not sure, then do a site collection. Right? If you're hesitating, should I do a sub-site? Then no, you're doing it wrong. Do a site collection. It's easier than to take a sub-site and say, now how do I convert it into a site collection? Because it depends on content types that are in the parent side. And so be careful with that. Different features activated based on requirement. No one has full control. No one. IT does. No one else has full control. I'll explain. Security. We kept security super basic, which means that there's no breaking of inheritance. Each site has a security, and that's it. For this team to work. Because it's so easy and quick to create a new team site. By the way, for those of you that are working with Yammer, if you're comfortable with that, I mean, we're all using it right now for this conference. But what they're rolling out is that whenever you create a new Yammer group, it's going to create a SharePoint team site. It's okay to have a lot of team sites, as long as you can find them and get the information that you need and work with the documents. This is the philosophy that we took. If you needed different security, I'll talk about it, but we have secure folders. But before that, we have 4 groups. The visitors, which have read, and the owner of that group is the bronze admin. Because our sites had levels of power. Bronze, silver, gold. And then, right now we rolled out the bronze sites. The members have contribute, and the bronze admin is the only one that can put them in. The bronze admin group has a little bit more than contribute. And the only person that can manage this group is the owner of the site. And the group owner has full control, but that's IT. Right? The last fallback. If the bronze admin has messed up everything, that's what's going to happen. But then there were scenarios where we gave a site to a team, and everyone that came into it had the same access in the team site. But then there were scenarios where we needed to work with people outside of our team to come in, work on documents with us, 20 documents, but we didn't want to create a new team site for these 20 documents. So what we created is the concept of secure folders, which is an extra button here. The secure folders, hey, info path. Crazy. All right, because I know everybody I like it. Anyway, so you create a folder, except there's things that automatically happen when you create a secure folder. It creates groups, it creates the folder, it breaks the inheritance for the folder, it removes all of the groups from the site except the bronze admins, and then adds the 2 custom groups plus the right permissions to it, and that becomes the secure folder. When you delete the secure folder, it deleted all the groups we created and all of the custom things that are inside of it. The idea is for me to kind of do like Dropbox style. Here's a folder with permissions, you, let's work, we finished, we close it off and it cleans up. Obviously I could create a new document library, but I don't want, the key takeaway from this session, simplicity. I don't want to give a team site and start telling them that, oh, well, that's a document library, but if you create one, then there's a content type, and then it's okay. No, these people work and they make the wheels of the car. I'm not going to train them on SharePoint. So I want to make it as simple to use as possible for them to use SharePoint. So click secure folder, tell me who's going to access it, thank you, goodbye. Or, all right, sit down. You're going to create a document library, click on break inheritance, add groups, but be careful because the groups belong to the whole site collection. It doesn't work. So that's why we did this. Again, 3,000 people, 4 people supporting them. So I needed the less amount of work possible. The document library kind of looked like this. One content type. So every time we created the document library, it was an extra content type. It was not the document content type. It was our own document content type. Because we wanted default values, different columns that we needed for security and classification, but especially for retention rules. Delete after 7 years. Because then the legal department's going to be pissed that you still have the document and we just got sued and we need to deliver that document. It happened. That's the whole reason we went to SharePoint for this company. One security. The site has one security. It's actually very good for performance. What's SharePoint really? SQL Server. The more you break permission, the more your site's going to get slow. Because we have to say, hey, SQL Server, can you give me all of the rows for those document libraries? But I got to remove the ones that he doesn't have access to. So for each row, check the permission. It's slow. The more you do that, the slower it gets. So this actually helped. We've given 10 pre-built views for that document library with pre-built filters, pre-built sorting, and all of that good information. And then this little thing on the side, which I used to hate. I used to hate this. It allows you to automatically navigate and filter by folders or by tags and allow you to do quick filters at the bottom. I hated it because I thought it just took spot on the left. And it actually saved my life. We forgot to activate it in one site, and they called us in panic saying they couldn't see any documents anymore in their library. They reached the famous 5,000. Have you ever heard of this? Right? What is that? Is that people? I've heard many complaints, and people tell me SharePoint is horrible. I can only put 5,000 documents. No, I think the limit is what? 60 million documents in the library, or 30 million? 30 million? 30 million documents in one library. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is the limit. It's not 5,000. 5,000 is a view threshold. The problem is that nobody understands how it actually works. The way that it works is that even if you show one document, it may require SharePoint to go fetch 6,000 to then do the filter to find the one. Right? If you have 6,000 documents in your library, flat, but then you do a view that shows one document, you're still asking SharePoint to go fetch the 6,000 and then filter to find the one. So you're still doing 5,000 view threshold. It's a threshold on the query that it has to do on SQL, basically. And what we didn't realize back then is that by activating this guy, it automatically fixes this problem. Because it creates what we call indexes for SQL, which bypasses that problem. I'm not going to get too technical because I know it's a 100 level session, but basically it allowed us for all of our already rolled out sites to never have that problem. Because with that and the filtering of keywords that we had on tags here and the folders that we put, we never encountered the problem. So that saved us a lot, so I do recommend you check it out. If you do go over, it's too late. If you think that a document library is going to go potentially over 5,000, do you ever go to list settings? Yeah? Do you ever go to column settings where you have all your columns? Did anybody ever wonder what this thing called index column does? No? Me neither, for like 4 years. Don't worry. 4 years I'm like, must be for search. It's not. It's actually for this. Index column is index for SQL. It has nothing to do with the search. It indexes that column. So if ever you're going to use a column to filter, to sort in your document library, go there, list settings, library settings, index column, say that you want to index that column that you're going to sort or filter on, so that inside his little database, he's going to do something special, so that it doesn't have to query the 6,000 to then filter. It's already going to have a filtered version, so to speak. Folders versus metadata. This was an awesome picture, I think. Folders, you've got lots of cabinets, and then you got to go find in all of the cabinets the files that you're looking for. Whereas metadata, additional information, you say that you want documents with that triangle, and everyone with a triangle says, I'm one of them. The biggest example that I use, you're a new employee. I give you a document. It's a contract for Bombardier. I have two folders. Contracts, customers. Where do you put it? 50-50. And then I'm saying, hey, you put it in the wrong folder. You know, oh no. That's one of, obviously this is two folders. You have the drive P, the drive O, N, G, and it's endless, lots of folders that were decided by somebody 30 years ago. So very, 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 very difficult. Right? And the problem is, the document is either in one place or the other. It cannot be physically at two places at the same time without being a duplicate version. So that's why we have metadata, because you put the document and then you can flag it, contract and customer equals Bombardier. So that whatever your perspective is on finding your documents, you're going to find them. The problem is that we ended up with too many fields to be able to do our job. And then what happens? Nobody enters the information, right? Or you can put required, and somebody's going to make sure that you lose your job. Right? Because they're going to be pissed. So we were trying to find what could be a solution. How can we help? So we put some basic folders in the document library that come by default. And there's a free feature in the document library that not many people use. And it's folder-based default values. When a document is placed in a certain folder, it automatically inherits properties. So we used it. We like free. So we used it. Right? So if you put a document in a folder, it would get 3/4 of the metadata. And then maybe you had to do something. But it really made the job a lot easier because I really needed all of this. I couldn't, one of them is for the retention, one is for key categories tagging, one is for marking, because if there are PDFs, we needed to mark them, and we had a system for that, a product that we bought, so if we didn't want to do it, man, okay, I got one document done. It doesn't work. And 3,000 people, we didn't want to get the phone calls. So simple folders can actually be good. They're good for permissions management, they're good for not getting that 5,000 view threshold, and they're good for folder-based metadata. Okay, anybody use that? Yes. Large document. We have to laugh a little. It's like, what, Thursday? Thursday. Wednesday. All right, quickly before, oh wow, did I really? All right, ooh, this is the team site. They really forced me to get a slider, otherwise they wouldn't be. And then what you see here is not the top navigation. You know what this is? This is the quick launch. We moved it up. We removed the global navigation, and they just have to manage the quick launch. And then we put some of administration here. Site members, site administration, the recycle bin, the help to go to a wiki with our videos, with our policies, and then they go straight to the document libraries, and the drop-down is the 10 default pre-built views that we've had. Then, this is in the site administration in the toolbox. If I clicked on site members, I would see the 3 groups I talked to you about, except I didn't call them bronze admin. Administrators, members, visitors. And people could see who had access, because now we said everyone, the whole site has the same permissions. So everybody could see who was a member, who was a visitor, and who were the administrators. You just go there. Then, this is the site administration. Nobody has site actions. No one. Not even the administrator of the site, except IT. What he has access to is the group management page, the picture management for the slider, the list management, because we did give them the ability to create lists if they need it, because I do want them to use extra stuff, but the documents, I really want them to start at least with the same document library to make it easy, folder-based metadata. I wanted them to see how powerful it is to work in documents at the same time, collaborate, really, but without all of the other hassles, like, what's the content type, what's the side column? And of course, the term store management tool to add keywords. We're big, big, big pluses on those. So guys, lesson that you should take away today, my favorite guy. Keep it simple. Right? We get caught up with the team sites by putting task lists. The task list, I don't want to say a bad word in front of you. The task list is not super awesome. Let's go with that. Okay? Neither is the calendar. Have you used the calendar list? You have Outlook. It's not that good. And, oh, it's recorded on video. Okay, well, right? But we tried to, we're like, oh, we got a team site. It comes with a discussion forum, it comes with a calendar, it comes with a, let's use all of them. Let's force people. No. I want them to eliminate the file share as much as possible and make it work. Did the communication, did the training, and just made it work. Simplicity. Don't add metadata. Here's a folder. The metadata is going to get there so that you can find it after. I'm going to do the search job. I'm going to do the metadata job. I'm going to do the views for you. I'm going to maybe allow you to create pages, but we'll get there. And you just work on the documents, and I'll help you find them, basically. Let me help you. Tom Cruise, right? So in 2013, of course, try to use search to deliver contextual. I couldn't do that in 2010. But the best is obviously in 2013. My homepage would be all search results web part. Contextually, based on who's logged in, I can say get the documents for people that edited documents from the same department as the person that just logged into the page. Or you really work with the flexibility of search and the display templates and the result types. So in 2013, my homepage would not be like that. It would all be contextually search-driven. And it is fairly easy. For those of you that were in my session yesterday, you know. Otherwise, I have everything online for you to check. Please, though, try not to customize everything. It doesn't always look cool. Okay? So try not to do everything with code. A lot of things can be done without code. Like I said, InfoPath is not that bad. It doesn't mean you have to go code something. If you can, and it takes 2 seconds, and you guys are awesome, then awesome. But try not to code everything, because it's usually harder later on. Okay? So a lot can be done out of the box, especially if you're with 2013, leveraging search and display templates. So guys, thank you very much.